Good afternoon, everybody, one and all, tuning in to day one of EUCF. Some interesting weather conditions we've seen so far, but certainly led to some exciting matchups already on day one. Both these teams, YAKA versus Mooncup in Pool A of the women's division, have had 2 wins each. So they've certainly not let the conditions fool them. But these teams have come up against each other so far throughout the season. There was a 15-12 win in YAKA's favour. That was at Elite Invite earlier on in the season in Leuven. So this certainly should be an exciting matchup. Currently in the pool standings, YAKA have taken first spot or came into the tournament seeded in first. Mooncup were second in Pool A. So some very contentious results that we could see here. Beautiful pitches in Oostende in Belgium, where the tournament is being held on the east coast of Belgium. So definitely set out to be windy. It's forecast to be 45-mile-an-hour gusts. But from watching a sideline live stream that Hannah Pendlebury, or Hanny, was playing for one of the Open Division matches on a previous pitch, having chatted to Ravi was saying that it's not exactly the wind that's causing problems, but it's often the rain. So you'll probably see a fair few more players wearing gloves to help with actually catching and retaining the disc and with throwing. Just makes it a bit easier. We've got YAKA in the red and Mooncup in, I believe that's a navy blue color. Unsure, but I do enjoy the color of the kit. Starting out, Mooncup on offense, immediately looking to center. YAKA come charging down. Mooncup already finding their way, finding their flow through. But pinned on the sideline, that throw well caught. Dished off across the sideline, immediately looking deep, has a receiver, but well sandwiched by defenders. Having to go to ground, YAKA with their first break opportunity of the game. Taking their time just to get themselves set up. It looks like YAKA are going to set up in a simple split stack, so horizontal. Immediately looking to center and do so with a quick dish off down the sideline. Fakes the deep. Opts for the safer dump option. Mondio strikes up the line but is not looked at immediately. Takes the safer dump option again. YAKA finding their flow and taking their time. But Mooncup doing a fantastic job in getting some poached defenders in the lane. Faking the big shot. Le Lefebvre trying to get the disc moving in a simple bubble. Lapse of concentration causes the second turnover of this game. Mooncup immediately pick up Rahali, looking to the center of pitch. The dump swings further wide. No calls made. YAKA play going deep. But Mondio opts again to take her time. That one well looked at. Just a few meters outside the end zone now. The flow has slowed significantly. A defender in the way, but YAKA get the first break of the game. 1-0. Very convincing start for YAKA. That's certainly what they're wanting to do. Get themselves on the board as early as possible. And they've certainly had a strong season for 2024. They came into this tournament as the first rank with 614.64 ranking points. A 9-2 record across, I believe it was 3 tournaments. So taking 9 wins. The 2 losses were only to Jinx. And that was at Elite Invite in Leuven, so they lost on universe points, so 14-13, and later on 9-12 as well. So very solid start. Wanting to keep the momentum from their 2023 season, if you look back on their Instagram, they actually gave a small highlight post to the 2023 season, claiming it to be one of their best. They came third at Beach Nationals. They won their indoor nationals, French outdoor nationals, Elite Invite, and London Invite, so extremely good start. They also came third at EUCF last year, winning the game against Troubles. But let's see how they fare against this Mooncup side. Not exactly home turf, but certainly closer than Noisy-le-Sec, and looking for the inside-out backhand option, but so many cuts going in the wrong direction. YAKA now have a half-field opportunity. And again, taking their time, getting themselves set up. They've got one cut going off from the sideline in towards the middle of the pitch. But again, a fair few cuts, causing some clustering and miscommunication, but they are able to get the next possession. A wide throw, but again, well defended by Mooncup. Mooncup are pushing in some poaches, trying to get some people in the lane and to cause that confusion that encourages errors such as that. Some wider throws across the end zone, but a very difficult position to be here on this front end zone line for Mooncup. Able to generate some throws across. Looking behind, then immediately for the dump across. Again, that quick throw and go. Keeping the cuts relatively short and close by. Wanting to look immediately deep. That disc upwind, floating multiple underneath it into the hands of Mooncup. Thankfully, two receivers underneath that. And able to utilize the width of the pitch. Marching their way down. Around backhand shot over the top. Almost dove straight into the ground with a wind causing it to crash, but instead into the hands of the Mooncup receivers. The score now level 1-1. And you can see by the flags in the background just how windy it is. Conditions have certainly not been favorable for really any teams. Some high fives and people wrapping up warm. And I spoke about YAKA's journey coming into this tournament. But Mooncup's journey has been very strong still. Obviously not as strong as YAKA's. They've come into EUCF as the 7th ranked team with 315.08 ranking points. A 7-5 record. So one of the 5 losses was to YAKA earlier on in the season, as I'd mentioned earlier on. But you can almost guarantee that Mooncup are wanting to fight for that win back against YAKA. They know that they can score and chip in a fair few points against them. After a quick turn, YAKA again back on offense. Working on this upwind side. That is perfectly defended. Mooncup defender goes up straight away. Wanting to look deep. Grab the bookends, but almost the hockey assist instead. Just bobbled outside the front end zone line. Bus pivots, fakes. Goes for the inside shot. Again, The wind is causing so much trouble, difficulty in reading this disc, but it's the concentration that you can see on their faces in terms of catching these discs is fantastic. Been a foul called uncontested. Straight back to Bus. Bus looking beautiful inside throw. Back onto the sideline. Deep. Has Mappekontiason into the end zone. Just a bit too far, unfortunately. That would have been a heroic grab if that were to have come off. Mooncup now with the entire length of the pitch to get up. And again, this front end zone corner is not ideal. It's extremely difficult to get off of this line unless you have some set plays and strong communication between your teammates. And Mooncup have done well so far. Getting the dump, looking for this deep. The initial misread, but there were also two defenders in the way. That would have been extremely difficult to get. YAKA with another opportunity. Stall count rising, but finds an option. Immediately dumped. Mondio calling for the under. Takes the option, but again bobbled. Just off the chest. Stall count getting ever higher. The high stall count option sails over the top. Looking for the leap. This is the first point with multiple turnovers that we've seen. It certainly gets progressively more exhausting, especially in these tricky conditions. And rather than going for the fast pickup bus, taking their time. Cut into the middle, then slashes out to the sideline. Inside, safely received. Dish back off into the middle. Looking for deep. Tipped off the hands of the Mooncup defender, almost with the second reception from YAKA. Mooncup with now half the pitch. Immediate pickup. Dished up. Again, sails over the top, but oh, the second person was there. Slight misread. It sounded as if that there was some sort of call. Fortunately not able to see any hand signals as of yet, so unsure as to what the call is. Bus opting to step in to give their perspective. And as a self-refereed sport, we do try to adhere to some semblance of time limits. Just to ensure that conversations don't go on for too long. Players stepping back into their original positions. Disc has been agreed to be a turnover. So YAKA again set up in this horizontal stack, looking for the isolated player off the sideline. Straight over the top, multiple people in the end zone, but into the hands of YAKA. Giving them their second point of the game. Now 2-1. fair few turnovers in that point. We're seeing how the conditions are playing a role in causing some difficulty in terms of catching. The throwing has been on point from both sides. They've been very assured of themselves and very confident. These are two teams that are almost certainly used to playing against these conditions. Almost certainly as well, each side, particularly on defense, are going to be utilizing the wind to their advantage. So Mooncup, we've already seen, are pushing some poaches into the lanes to try and cause some miscommunications or just getting in the way and making a simple undercut much more difficult to carry out. And when you've got the wind on your back as well as an extra element to consider, it stifles flow a significant amount. And something that we've seen from YAKA throughout this season is how they're able to generate that flow to work through difficult conditions, like at this tournament or even at Tom's tourney, where day one was miserable. But YAKA have seemed to find that at no problem. Mooncup, same situation here. Mooncup on offense. The opportunity to level up. That just floats over the top of the second reception for the bid. Receives. And this is what I mean by confident disc skills. They are not afraid to utilize the pitch to their advantage. It's just tipped off. Fantastic positioning from YAKA. Mooncup had both receivers there in the end zone, but YAKA got the better of it. Are they able to convert to give them their second break of the game? Fair few poaching defenders in the way. Currently, person on disc is unmarked. Cuts have slowed ever so slightly. Looking for the around, does find it. And this Mooncup defense is doing a fantastic job stopping these under options, having to find this wide swing, well, almost swing option. It's not quite an under, not quite a deep, so I'm not sure whether to call that a swing or not. Second hold opportunity denied. The run through D. And the break, fantastic. This is what I meant by beloved hands being an advantage, or at least, I don't know, a leveling playing opportunity, a level playing field. YAKA with their second break of the game, bringing it to 3-1. I'd say for the first few points, we saw Mooncup playing with strong conviction. And it's certainly something that they can bring back, something that we've seen from them all season. That's something I would hope that they could bring back after what I believe is a timeout that Mooncup have called. Just to introduce a little bit more of the story of Mooncup coming into this tournament. So I mentioned that they came in as the 7th ranked team from the EUF ranking system that has been set up this year. But outside of the EUF ranking, they've also become the Belgian champions for the first time in the team's history. So fantastic job. They wanted to give a shout out on their Instagram. I've gotten all this information from Instagram, so giving a shout out to their two captains, number 19 Maria Belper. And number 23, Perrine de Hasp. Maria was one of the founders for Mooncup, and Perrine has been playing with Mooncup for 15 years. You don't really see people playing for teams that long as much anymore. A lot of people kind of jump to and from various teams, so it's fantastic to see that there are people who are holding fast and staying true with their systems and with the team that they love. Really trying to withhold and build a community. Upwind pull floats just to outside the halfway point. First few fakes with determination. The YAKA forces just poaching off ever so slightly on the mark, keeping their distance. Mooncup wanting to utilize that break side, and I love that look. The shape just causing the disc to sink into the ground. YAKA with their third break chance of this game. Immediate dish up into the middle. Again, flying over the top, close to the sideline. Mooncup defender had perfect positioning. Now on the sideline. Mooncup also going with a horizontal stack, wanting that immediate deep option. The cut was there and the throw was phenomenal. The bid, my goodness, that would have been heroic stuff. There has been an injury call from the YAKA side. No Mooncup players opt to take that opportunity either. So it's just checked in as a turnover. Another upwind throw. Sails over the top. Caught by Carmen Lagala. Mooncup get the disc moving immediately, looking up the line, has the power position, takes it on. Just sails out the back line by the rugby goal post. And that is again not an easy throw to come off. Personally, I find some of the downwind shots more difficult to gauge, particularly when you're in a power position. You've got that extra bit of momentum behind you. You've got some adrenaline as well when you see somebody going deep. Being able to execute a throw like that perfectly downwind is not an easy feat. Some more poaching defenders trying to get their claws and sink their teeth into this. It floats over the top. That's one of those poachers getting in the way. This caught under the gusty wind and snaffled up immediately. Some powerful fakes. Really throws off the force. Throwing me off as well. The Mooncup also opting to take their time, taking the safest options. Around the back break. Trying to look for a dump option as the stall count rises. Does find a swing instead. Just outside the end zone, they are centimeters away. I thought that was in. And a quick dish to the front corner brings the score now to 3-2 in YAKA's favor. And that timeout seemed to serve Mooncup well. They were able to bring back some of that determination and conviction that we'd seen from them in the first few points. It's not an easy thing to do, keeping up that level of energy throughout the game, so fantastic job. I'd be curious to hear what was discussed in the timeout circle to bring them back to that level of energy that they needed. That pull rolls just at the feet of the YAKA offender. De Laval looks up the line and finds it. None. There is a Mooncup player down, though. Hopefully they're okay. They appear to be standing up and walking off, which is a good sign, but they are taking the injury substitution. That was Sarah Rahali. Hopefully we'll be able to see her come back on pitch later on in the game. Taking some shelter under a rather jazzy rainbow umbrella. Disc stays in the hands of YAKA. Immediately dumped back. Trying to find options. Has a streaking Mooncup defender running through instead. The rain now thundering down. Mooncup now charging through. Taking that beautiful backhand around break option. Sinking low into that flick. And again, that quick backhand around break dish. Patient options. Takes that on. The defender has read that well. There was a pick. I was thinking that person was completely free. Not really understanding why until seeing the pick. Check back in. Immediately looking for the dish back break. Streaking up the line into the end zone. I love that cut and I love that option. If the conditions weren't as awful, that would have definitely come off. YAKA now on the end zone line. They've got a whole length of the pitch to work up, and that is not an easy thing to do when you've got this suffocatingly hard Mooncup defense. Flying bid, redeeming that throw. Bono holding on to possession for Mooncup. They really want this, and they have it! That slicing and dicing flick levels up this game to 3-all. Mooncup with their first break. And the fact that they stormed on the pitch just shows how much it means. YAKA have been such a strong powerhouse of women's ultimate, not just this year, but for many, many years. And to be able to be as close and bring them to such tight points where you can almost see them crumbling and falling apart. It's a rare sight to see. But both sides so far doing a fantastic job. Finding some beautiful flow through the defense and these conditions. And again, something that we saw in that most recent possession was Mooncup's ability to just break the force. They'd make a strong fake and then immediately go for the backhand around with absolute pace. And it makes a huge difference. That disc flying high but well caught. Just sinking over the top. Oh, almost. Back to the ground. Another break opportunity for Mooncup. They want to take that on, and they do, but it's, again, that really difficult throw downwind. YAKA with the factory reset of their offensive possession here. Take that flick break around. Into the middle. Quick dish off again. YAKA's offense are known for doing these quick give-go passes, but a hand block giving Mooncup less than a third of the pitch to the end zone. Have they got the patience? And they do! Their second break to give them the lead in this game. Now 4-3 in Mooncup's favor. And it's fantastic to see the scoreline being so tight. A lot of the time when you are in the pool stages of tournaments like this, of elite level tournaments, you don't get so many tight matchups. But we're seeing throughout the tournament, throughout multiple divisions, really tight scorelines. And I think that just gives credit to how closely abled all of these teams are, which is so exciting to see, at least as a spectator. I can imagine as a player, it makes games a lot more difficult to predict. But so far, both of these teams have a win under their belts against Jet Set and Catch Up. YAKA taking Catch Up 11-4 and Jet Set 14-11, whereas Mooncup took Jet Set, their fellow Belgian, a fellow Belgian team, 14-9, and versus Catch Up, their score was 14-7. So really strong showing from both sides so far. Still ridiculously close score lines for the most part. That pull just on the halfway line. There is a pick call, but Le Costafer was able to hold on to that. Disc staying on the sideline, coming and stalling to Bono on the force. Now centered and swung across. Some bigger cuts coming off towards this sideline, the far sideline. YAKA now have their flow. Mooncup trying to utilize poachers, often not even looking at the person with the disc, giving them space, but it has allowed YAKA to break through. With absolute conviction, YAKA have leveled it up again. 4-4. We're 36 minutes into the game. Current local time is 36 minutes past 4 in Oostende, Belgium. And I think thankfully for the rest of the weekend, it's not looking so bad in terms of the rain. The wind is still going to be very much present. This is pretty much a coastal town, so it's unsurprising that it's going to be windy, but I'm sure that the rest of the players of this tournament will be very happy to not have to wear their waterproofs the whole weekend. So the scoreline 4-4. Mooncup on offense, standing directly over the brick mark. With a split stack, did find the isolated player. Again, trying to find this isolated person, Lagala. Into the middle. The round break, beautifully found. Mooncup doing a fantastic job in creating enough space for each other. And trying to get these isolated shots and almost playing YAKA at their own game with their quick give goes. But YAKA also going in with some buzz switching on defense. So taking whatever person is completely open, that inside throw just sailing to the ground. The weight of the disc from the wind just causing it to fly to the floor. YAKA with two isolated cutters, immediately looking deep. Has a few receivers, but also a few defenders in the way. After the crowd clears, it's in the hands of Mooncup. Cutting hard, but slips out the hand. Mondio immediately picks up, looking for Bus. They find their option in the middle. Castillo. Back to Mondio. On the sideline, Meisel. Wanting Castillo. Does find Castillo. Again, absolute determination and fire from YAKA. The rain can do so little to extinguish that. Just to talk about how the rest of the tournament is going to be playing out. So after pool play, as you can see, my goodness, the weather looks awful. A timeout seems to have been called and the rain is thundering down very hard, might even be hail. But after pool play, the top seed from each pool immediately goes into the quarterfinals. The second in the pool, second and third in pool, play pre-quarters in order to get into the quarterfinals. The fourth in the pool plays in a bottom bracket round robin. And then you move from quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. The finals will be on Sunday. So there's still a fair few games to play through. There's some incredibly exciting scorelines I'm seeing on the EUCS website for the results. Fabulous having taken 3SB, 12-11. Troubles having taken East Block, 13-12. So already some universe point games. And this is just the women's division. Iceni took Box, 15-14. So that's 3 universe point games that we've seen on day 1. I'm excited to see what it's going to be like tomorrow and the day after. Of course, you can look at the rest of the results on the EUF results website. You can keep track of everything that's going on at EUCF. YAKA on D coming in after the timeout. That rolling pull doesn't slow down Mooncup as they immediately look deep, but it seemed to be some sort of miscommunication. There weren't any players going deep at that point. It does pin YAKA close to the sideline, quite deep into the pitch. They're also wanting a deep shot, but instead taking the open under, but the wind denies that option instead. Quick dish behind to Rollet. Swinging across to the other sideline. Rollet immediately going up the line. It floating over the top. The YAKA defender does get in the way instead. Having to go to ground to bid. Instead, Mooncup with another opportunity. In a game of trading turnovers, but a foul has been called. Quite difficult to be able to tell which player had position from this perspective. Of course, it's the experience of the players themselves that is the most important. I'd imagine that there is some sort of discussion as to whether the Mooncup player was able to get up as a result, get up for the disc as a result of any sort of contact from the YAKA player. Disc back into play. Mooncup come charging down that sideline. Tipped off the hands of the force. Aided by the wind. But YAKA, again, want that deep shot. They want to make sure that Mooncup don't have enough of an opportunity to just jink the score in. Looking deep for themselves. They have multiple receivers. They do find one that had a perfect read. Sinking low for the flick. It's two different Mooncup players. They do find one, though. My goodness. That's the kind of backup you need from teammates. We're trading breaks. We're trading holds. We're trading points. That is now 5-5. So a fantastically close game so far. We're about 45 minutes in. And I believe that games are at least 90, if not 100 minutes. This is something I probably should have checked before starting this game, and it's something I will check now. And that pull soars into the middle of the end zone. Fantastic positioning. Bus calling a violation. No problems found. This check back in. Stall count was rising, tipped over the top, but almost into the hands of the YAKA receiver, having to go to ground. But keeping their eyes on the prize, Mooncup wanting another break, a pick in the stack. It did look to be quite congested. And again, that around backhand going to ground. Mooncup bring this game to 6-5. Another break on the board. YAKA starting to show those cracks that I spoke about earlier on. They are struggling against not only the conditions, but the fact that Mooncup are utilizing it to their advantage. Being smart with their defense and staying switched on. Whenever that disc goes up, they've got people underneath it. It looks like there's another timeout call. I'd imagine this is from YAKA's side. A wise call to make. Definitely good to take a break. And welcome back to the second half of this YAKA Mooncup Pool A game. Their third game of EUCF. So far, Mooncup up 6-5. YAKA now starting the second half on offense. Castillo has the deep option she wanted. Has the defender, but the person going to the ground bidding. Unfortunately unsuccessful, but what a way to start the second half. That is the attitude that you need in these games. Just keeps you firing, keeps you going. You know the option that you want. You've got it and you take it. A beautiful throw from Castillo. Mooncup with another break chance. YAKA have opted to poach off in the lanes as well. Stifle Mooncup's offense. Wanting to go upwind. Deep, but snaffled up by the defender. YAKA knocking on the door of the end zone. Stall count rising, the dump option does find in the end zone front line. Score now level at 6-6. And the attitude that I first spoke about, for Mooncup more specifically, about doing things with conviction, being really decisive about what options that you take, about your throws. That is what we saw from YAKA in that first point. When you're playing against really strong conditions, against strong opponents, it's understandable to let those things get into your head. And so then as soon as you have some slip or lapse of concentration or belief or knowing that you can do something, that's where the mistakes start to flood in. And where we saw in the first half, Mooncup starting to ramp up the momentum. They were taking on throws that they knew were going to be hard, but they did them anyway. And that's what gave them the separation. That first point from YAKA is what we saw there as well. They saw the throw, they took it, they wanted it. And Mooncup are showing that as well. Being fast and decisive, having to go to ground. Clap catch. Caught. That was Dahas, one of the captains for Mooncup. And again, giving each other plenty of space in a much more simple vertical stack style offense. With the initiation coming from the front instead. Dish, backhand over the top to the far sideline. Meters away from the score. Jinking back and forth for the break cut. Inside out, flick, going for a bid again. Taking her time to stand up, but does. Everyone seems to be stood still. Seems to be some sort of substitution for injury. Yep, that's confirmed. Both sides opting to swap some players. The far dump has a poaching defender in that middle lane. The dump handler does slice up the line. Throw over the top. There is a foul call from YAKA. Quite difficult to see within the cluster what was happening, but I believe that the YAKA receiver was saying that there was contact in both of them trying to get to the disc as it was flying over the top of them. It seems to be accepted. So disc back into the hands of YAKA. Check back in. Takes the brake option immediately. Some intelligent buzz switching from defenders there. Castillo slicing up the line with a big fake. Finds Mondio in the middle. Bass in power position. Doesn't take that throw on. Rising over the top. Phenomenal catch. And this is the kind of flow that we've seen from YAKA before. Taking the first available option that they can. Lady forehand around the back. Timeout call. Just a few meters outside the end zone. Mondio didn't see the cuts that she wanted. Thought, you know what? Let's take a break. So YAKA now just a few meters outside of their own end zone. Getting themselves set up. They've got an isolated player just outside the front there. Bus as the dump handler and Mondio on disc. The rest of the stack have been set off on the far sideline. Getting some sort of isolated play. This one between the handlers, try and generate some flow. Looking up the line, but all of the poached defenders read that instead. Looking towards the back of the end zone, just tipped over and outside. Phenomenal read from the defense there. Mooncup want to get things going immediately, wanting that deep shot. But again, the defense was there. 3 defenders. But one was just a bit faster. Managed to get that sandwich in, stopping and getting perfect position. Preventing even a second reception on that. Ma va contigo ça. Back down towards the middle. Trying to find options. Slides a backhand across. Not exactly how the throw was wanting to come out. And it's given Mooncup this chance. To take the lead once again. Hammer over the top. It fades towards the back end zone line. I love that option. Anytime you can introduce a hammer into the game, I'm your biggest fan. The YAKA stack has set up relatively close to the disc, trying to keep their cuts shallow again, having to go to knees, but is received again, going to ground. That's just showing how much of an impact this wind is having on the disc flight. Wanting that same backhand throw shot, looking upwind, but it's caught. Can Bass read? Bass did read. The wind just caught it further. Out the sideline. Mooncup. Now going downwind. Takes a few negative meters to get that reset off. YAKA not too concerned about that option. Able to find the swing. Defender almost got there. Dished over down the middle. Safe hands. Trying to find something, and they do. A wide open player in the end zone. Mooncup now take the lead. As an hour of gameplay has now passed. In my calculations, games should be 90 minutes. I could be wrong though. So we should have about 30 more minutes of gameplay. As it stands in Pool A, although both of these teams have got wins, and YAKA came into this tournament seeded first, so they were the top of Pool A. Mooncup, if you look at the pool on the EUCF schedule website, Mooncup are actually sitting at the top of Pool A, and that is purely down to goal difference at the moment. So both of these teams have beaten Jet Set and Catch Up, but because Mooncup have a higher goal difference at 12 to YAKA's 10, it means that Mooncup are currently sitting at the top of this pool. Obviously, whoever's going to win this game is most likely going to win this pool as it stands. But YAKA wanting that first place Pool A slot to go straight into quarterfinals. Quite a few cuts coming under, causing some confusion. The forehand now going straight to ground. Mooncup having to work upwind, did have the receiver there, but my goodness, this wind is relentless. I believe it's partially to do with the angle of the camera, but also the trees are sideways almost. And without even a question going up the line, YAKA really want this score. Some deep cuts coming off, but everything seems to be quite deep for Mooncup. YAKA pick up immediately. Dump off to the front end zone line. And into the end zone for the score. The spike also soaring over the top. We're back to level at 7-7. Another game of trades. Looking at some of the other results. Throughout the tournament, there's some drama across pretty much all the divisions, so some of the scores have been a lot closer than anticipated, particularly for pool play, and that's maybe credit to how the ranking system has allowed for... I don't know, it's not even really allowed for similarly seeded teams to be together, because we're seeing that separation as well, but that's maybe just credit to how competitive each division is this year. As I mentioned earlier on, we've had 3 Universe Point games in the women's division alone. That's not even counting some of the Universe Point wins or games throughout the Open and the mixed divisions. That poll did not go very far at all, so Mooncup have a short field. Getting themselves an end zone rep practice here. YAKA immediately stopping that around. Has to find the inside shot and does. Takes it on, that backhand around, just sailing out the hands. The immense pressure of YAKA's defense really interfering, getting in the way. YAKA wanting to take as much of the field as possible. With 2 defenders, stops that instantly. A quick stumble at the back of the pitch. Maba Conti de Castillo. Trying to find that dump option. A few players cutting deep. But giving each other space towards that handler set. And Mooncup just poaching off into the lanes. Mon Dieu. Finds the dump. Mauvais condition. Throws and then goes directly up the line. Back into the hands of Mauvais condition. And this is the kind of flow we've seen from YAKA before. Just providing enough space, keeping to their systems whenever they can. That jink and jive up the line. YAKA with another score. Bringing it now to 8-7. And again, taking those options on with absolute conviction and trust in each other. That is certainly a factor that will make a huge difference for both sides. As soon as you can take charge of the feel for this game, take charge of the mental game, of the mental aspect, so to speak, that's when you can really just take control of the whole game entirely. Particularly a game that is so level-footed as this one. But so far, in the recorded season at least, in the ranked season, YAKA's only losses have been to Jinx. They were both at Elite Invite in Leuven earlier on in the season. So YAKA have a strong winning streak for the EUF season so far. That downwind pull. Wouldn't really say floats. It soared deep into the end zone, forcing Mooncup into a much more tricky position. Quick turnover gives YAKA a shorter field just around the brick mark. You can see some of the legs are getting tired, some of the options getting more difficult to take on. Flying bid, trying to get in the way, but they're... I thought there was a call, there was not a call. It's been accepted as a turnover. Mooncup immediately going for the pickup. Taking that dump and swing option on. Before I could even catch up what was going on, the disc was in the hands of YAKA. There's been another turnover. Brought it on the end zone line. Quick bobble. It's just a slight lapse of concentration in this wind. You've got to keep your eyes on the disc at all times. And as soon as you lose that, even for a split second, the disc is already out of your hands. It could be really tricky to keep a hold of it. YAKA with some flow outside the end zone. And they do bring it in. That's another break, I believe. It is quite difficult to see, actually. Is that a turnover or is that a score? I can only apologize for my confusion. The AI cameras do tend to pick up where discs are being played. And as soon as somebody's throwing in front of the camera will pick that up instead, so I'm not sure what's going on the pitch at times. But Mooncup with possession currently. They're doing so well at using the entire width of the pitch. They're not staying within a single channel. Making sure that they try and utilize every single centimeter, wanting to look deep. The shape of that, unfortunately, sat towards the other side of the pitch. If they were on this closer sideline, that definitely would have been the correct option and would have come off perfectly. But with this wind, it's difficult to read what shape of a throw to use. This point has been a bit of a marathon. YAKA also wanting to use the entire width of the pitch. Getting their teammates to sprint out as far as possible for every option. Mooncup answer back with their own deep shot. Straight into the chest of the YAKA offender. Mondio surveying. Takes a bit of a bump from the mark. But continues on. And now they have the momentum. Tipped off by more defense. And again, switching over. Lots of dish options. Back and forth. But the fingertips of YAKA give them another turnover. Another D. And as tired as they are wanting to get moving as fast as possible. Mondio again with the timeout call. I'm not surprised at that. It is exhausting after multiple turnovers to try and rewire your thoughts into offense, defense, offense, defense. So hopefully both sides can get a good break, get some water on, get some snacks on, and reevaluate how to approach the final part of the second half of this game. YAKA on offense coming out of this timeout. Choosing to set up in some variation of a split stack, so having 2 active players on the open side, 3 handlers back and 2 inactive players on the far side. Mondio rips that backhand deep and it flies. I can definitely see why that was taken on. You're wanting to get as expansive as possible, allow for your players to look for that deep option, but it does put them in a more advantageous position if they're able to get the turnover at this point. And here they are applying that pressure onto Mooncup, and Mooncup have been so decisive with their throws, their options all game. They've got bodies underneath everything, and they are firing for it. Defender underneath, but just comes short. Dishes off back. And goes, slices up line. Back into the middle of the pitch. Takes a deep shot of their own. Has somebody streaking deep. Flails the hands in the air for the catch for the Mooncup score. We're back level after that absolute monster of a point. Definitely anyone that was on there, please take a rest. My goodness, that looked painful. So not long left of regulation gameplay time. The cap will go off quite soon. And again, you'll notice on the results website, not all of the results, if not most of the games, haven't gone to 15, and that's because the conditions have pushed the games into soft cap a lot earlier in the scoreline. So that's why we're seeing some of the 11-9s, 9-7s, 14-9s, 14-12, 13-12 score lines. With the score currently sitting, I believe, at 8-8. We'll probably see a very similar outcome here. Unless one of these sides is able to just absolutely storm their way through. ball in the lap of YAKA. Finds the first option. It is dumped back into the middle of the pitch. The quick dish off in power position, wanting to rip the backhand, but a good fake. And it is released eventually. Multiple players underneath it. Who's going to come out on top? It is Mooncup in this circumstance. The quick turnover gives them a break chance. Dish back having to go low, but caught. Does have the dump option, but didn't want it. Was wanting just that deep. It sits beautifully into the hands for Mooncup. Their score. That was some decisive stuff. Did look up one of the open dump options, but instead saw something that I couldn't see, which was that deep cut. A beautiful backhand throw into the end zone. We've seen that throw go wrong quite a few times already in this game from multiple players, but that disc was weighted beautifully into the lap. Still having to go full sprint, but if you weren't at full sprint, your defender would be there anyway. So that was a fantastic shot. Good job from Mooncup. Now taking the lead. This is the last game of the day for Pool A. Catch Up and Jet Set are playing on Field 26, so one of the other fields relatively close by, and then tomorrow morning they'll be playing their final pool game. Apologies, this is their final pool game. I can't do maths. They'll be moving into the bracket play, into crossovers. Whoever wins this game will be wanting that top spot to move straight into the quarterfinals. Fantastic feat to keep that within the pitch. Again, using the whole width. Trying to find a dump. Does take one on. Around break. There's a cut coming off the front end zone, but it was well defended. YAKA player on the ground, rising high. Castillo. Wanting that throw over the top. Is it going to be caught? Just sails over. Some pressure from the Mooncup defenders. And the looming back end zone line. Mooncup with another break chance. But pinned to this end zone line. Does find a dump option. Inside backhand. Defender rips it out the air. Gets it moving for YAKA. Into the end zone. Another YAKA point. This is a tight one, folks. I can't call how it's gonna go. At all. We're back level. 9-9. We don't have much time left in the game, so it's going to go down to a close final cap. Are we going to see another universe point finish? I'm certain once this game is over, a fair few people will be wanting to get some beautiful Belgian beers in their bellies. Maybe enjoy some frites and some waffles. That's a lot of Belgian food stereotypes going on there. Pull goes up. Inching ever closer to the final cap. Mooncup around the brick mark, going for that backhand shot. Has multiple defenders in the way, but a streaking Mooncup player into the hands. My goodness! What a catch! That was some phenomenal stuff, and you can see how much it means. I thought there was a call there. There isn't. What a phenomenal grab. There was at least 3 YAKA defenders in the way. After having seen a few of those throws go errant in the first half in particular, I was convinced that it was going to get blocked, tipped away by YAKA. But no. Mooncup took that on and have sliced the score 10-9. I believe that that might be the win for Mooncup, looking at the fact that there are other players warming up on the pitch. So absolute congratulations to Mooncup for winning on another universe point here at EUCF. That is the Pool A of Women's Division over. Mooncup having taken that top spot. Some incredible play from both sides. YAKA having been caught sleeping, but Mooncup taking their opportunity and taking their chance, fighting with conviction. Thank you so much for watching this game. Keep up with the action throughout this weekend at EUCF, and we'll see you soon.